All right, so let's define what an atom is. When I talk about atoms, basically what I'm talking about is two perpendicular planes intersecting so that the center of rotation is as close as you can get it. If it's diagonally tilted, if it's a crosshair this way, if it's diagonally tilted rotated slightly, this crosshair, or this upside down version, all of those are atoms oriented differently to me. And they kind of look like an oval from the side or a circle with a line through it. That's an atom. That's a tilted atom. Like that. And so I'm going to explain to you the way I think of timing and direction with these things, how to orient them to your body, and different ways to like get into them and apply them to other moves you might already know. All right, so we have our two planes, right? This is the orbit of the poi, this is the orbit of the poi. Our two planes are 90 degrees to each other. Something interesting to note is there's a point where they both cross, and you can consider that their shared axis, right? X, Y, Z kind of thing, that's your Z. You can use this to determine timing of your spinning, right? So if both poi are crossing at the same time, same time. If one's here, split time. If one's here, 1/4 rotation away in any orientation, then that's quarter time, right? And so you can use that to kind of start thinking about your timing. And then as far as direction goes, you can use this as direction for the most part. But polarity is going to become more important than direction, polarity and orientation. And I'll explain that directly. So when I think of polarity, if we watch this one orbit, this is moving one direction, this is moving the opposite direction, or this side's moving down and this side's moving up. So we can use that to start labeling atomic things, right? You have a positive half and a negative half. And if you have two planes at 90 degrees, then you end up with one quadrant positive, one quadrant negative, and then a quadrant where they'll clash together, right? One's moving this way, one's moving this way, and that's where you get your air wraps, right? So that's how you can polarize and name each quadrant of the atom. So now we can determine if is it positive, negative with a clashing here, or is it positive, negative with clashing here, or is it positive, negative with clashing on the sides. We can describe how the atom is oriented relative to us. We can also describe the timing with that third axis. All right, so the next kind of handy concept is the idea of the nexus. And so where your tethers cross in space, that point right there, that's what you call your nexus. Now, as the poi are perpendicular and their orientation is changing, that position of the nexus will change, right? So right here, it's underneath my hands. Right here, it's on top of my hands. If I rotate it, it's a diagonal. If I continue to rotate it, then I get it's on my left and right side. There's the left, there's the right. So you can manipulate where the nexus is in space. And when you start thinking about the quadrants, if the nexus is in a quadrant that is positive and positive, or negative and negative, then your atom is going to mesh. No matter the timing and direction, it'll work. If you try to put your nexus in one of the clashing quadrants, that's where you get your air wrap, and then it won't work unless you're going for an air wrap. Now, if we think about where the nexus is in those quadrants, we come up with a coherent kind of plane system, right? So positive, this is where positive, positive, this is the negative going away, so negative, negative, and then you have your clashing quadrants here, right? So if your nexus is always in this quadrant, it'll work, or this quadrant, it'll work, right? These ones, you can only put one hand at a time into this quadrant. So if your atom is facing up and down, like a buzzsaw vertically split to an atom, then it'll look like this. If you start your buzzsaw horizontally, this is what your planes will look like. And this is how they'll mesh. Your nexus will be on the left and the right instead of on the top and the bottom. You can also set it up like this, the diagonal nexus. That's how crosshair atoms work. You'll have to put your nexus in one side or the other, and then you'll get your air wraps there and there. All right, now we consider how do we orient that atom to us. Are we going to spin it so that it's in the crosshair like that? And we fix it that way so that we can say on the wall plane, wheel plane, wall plane, wheel plane. We can make those same determinations with the X atom. You know, we can take the X atom and rotate it so that the nexus is now on the left and the right. And we have that orientation of the atom. And you get into these, here's one, diagonal versus horizontal, I'm sorry, diagonal versus vertical because of box mode breaks. So each atom has a way to be used, you know. So explore with those and get used to moving around them, just like you would a buzzsaw or something, you know. How you can move around a buzzsaw. You can do the same thing with an atom. All right, last little piece of the atomic puzzle is mode, right? So I can do it so that I'm in V, this is valley mode. I'm moving forward at the top polarity, or I'm now moving forward at the top in mountain mode. So there's actually two versions of every orientation. Is it mountain mode forward, or is it valley mode forward? It makes a difference because valley mode forward correlates with reverse mountain mode, right? And mountain mode forward correlates with reverse valley mode. And that kind of inversion occurs even with like vertical versus vertical. Now the nexus is in front of my hands. Now the nexus is on my left and my right. Now the nexus is in front of my hands. I can also do it this way. So the nexus is in between my hands, left, right, and nexus is in between my hands. There's two versions of all the different atoms and the way they orient to you. Once you become familiar with how the atom is oriented to you and moving around and being familiar with it like you would a weave or a buzzsaw, you can start doing moves. Like the most obvious move would be like a fractal or explode the idea, right? So atom, and then just do like the flower version. It's just a big atom with petals on each corner. And you can do anti-spin, right? So, or you can even do those diagonally. There's all sorts, like vertical versus vertical. You can do the flowers that way. You can hybridize the flowers so it's anti-spin versus in-spin. Caps. So all the stuff you do with normal poi things, you can start exploring and stuffing into the atomic world. And it's very fun. All right, so now that we kind of understand this, let's look at braided flowers. These are the areas we can have our hands, right? One hand on either side, both hands on the top of the bottom, right? We can use kind of a helix to move these out. Each one of these has a sphere of movement. So with one hand on either side, I can go up, I can go down, kind of left, kind of right. If I cross my hands, now the nexus is up, so I get the whole upper region. If I put the nexus below my hands, I have this whole lower region. I can do one below, one above, one below, one above, or the inverse of that. I mean, like this, or like this. So if I move through those variables one beat at a time, that's how you get braided flowers. That was an extra beat up there. But I hope that was a good breakdown of those.